So it's pretty heavy, and we spend quite a bit of time reflecting and talking about the imagery. And then often when we read something, they go, "Oh, I remember that image. They tried to escape. Was that when they were cutting the net?" And I'm like, "Yes." And when they were force feeding that person because they were trying not to eat, yes. And so the imagery connects them to the reading and the facts that they're learning in a way that is difficult but necessary if we really want them to understand the history in an organic, authentic way as opposed to just a cleaned up version. Another one, and again, I'm sorry for those if slavery is not your thing or your topic, but this is another site. Perhaps you have a teacher friend, you could show them. This takes them on a visually virtual understanding of the slave trade. So it's a timeline, and you'll see the kids, we notice, how the timeline is moving here. So this is factual data, and then we notice that those are ships. So we're going to talk about what could you summarize about the increase of slavery over time? Where was slave trade taking place in relationship to West Africa? And they're surprised to see so many slave ships going to South Africa because we don't talk about South Africa.
South America.
What's that? South America. Sorry, so sorry. I knew that. We don't talk about that part of America, but they see that. And then again, we're looking at the timeline. And one thing that you can do with this website is you can pause it and click on one of the dots and look at the manifesto of the slave ship and read how many were on the ship. And then the kids begin to get really sickened by this swarm. And they know that those are mothers and fathers and grandparents and grandmas and brothers and sisters. And so they're not dots for them because they've been connected emotionally through our other exercises. So this is not just a cool graphic, but they recognize. And we talk about the timeline of the Civil War and what led up to it and how we can see. And we notice that ships go to the northern part of the United States or British colonies because slavery was up there as well. So you can pause it, and then you can tap, and that's the night. It was 100 ton with 477 enslaved people. It arrived in Jamaica with only 390. And then you can click for more information. So, again, a very valuable exercise. And obviously, lots of books to help. I do read alouds to help them step inside, and depending upon the subjects that we're talking about, this is a book I always read prior to our study of the Civil War. And when I talk about slavery, these two, and immigration, I read from those and then do book talks, and they grab them as fast as they can to read them. And again, quotes can be really powerful as a way to just sort of set a tone, front load information. And we can often look at historical figures in terms of their moral values and their character and what actions did they take in those moments in history that were positive or negative. And so we do an analysis of the different historical figures that we run into through our study of history. And we look at their core values, and I tell them, even when the majority was doing the wrong thing, there were always heroes. There are the abolitionists. There are those who are fighting against the laws that are wrong. And so that is a helpful thing to do, to help them sort of think about, in terms of our character or core values at our school, is there evidence of that we see in these individuals that we're studying? And I forgot to mention one little visual thing that I do. Our development office gave paper bags. They had a bunch of them, so I grabbed them. and for any of you who are teaching writing, it's a great little thing. You can put the elements of an essay into a bag, and then as the kids are working on them, they have a focus on what they're working on. So when we first start our world problem correlations, I said you need to fill your bag with the data, looking at thematic maps, infographics, and graphs. You need to fill them, find them, and then you have to be able to analyze them. Think deeply about how they help to prove your thesis statement, your correlation. And then I have little models for them. So at each table, they know what they're working on for that couple of days. And then I'll say, when you're doing this, you might also run into some experts. So make sure. And then I show them with mini lessons how to quote an expert in an essay form. And then future implications is another paragraph. And then their project is all about weaving it all together to tell the story. So if you have any paper bags handy, they're great little tools that I find very helpful. All right. I didn't take the whole time, but I'm certainly open to any questions that you might have. And I did upload this onto the document they asked us to, the folder. So, thank you. Thank you. Oh, yes, please. Yes. And something I also do is have them touch the cotton, because it's, you know, you think of cotton, you think it's so soft, but when you feel the edges, they realize if you do this all day, what your fingers would be like. So that's another sensory, emotional thing. My poor kids. I tell them at winter break, I said, Play-Doh, Legos. They're like, that's for kids. I said, I know. You need to be kids. Just play and eat cookies and don't read any of these books during winter break. Because I tell them I have to take a break too, because it's just so heavy. And I go home sometimes and I just cry because it's so sad. But, you know, we cry together in class because this is history. And sadly, there's a lot of sad stuff in history. But yes, please, help yourself.
Tail end. Tell me about the bags real quick.
Oh, sure. So, So they're doing a 4-paragraph essay in this example, and this is their opening paragraph, and in their opening paragraph they have to start with this opening statement, a question, a grabber, and I give them a bunch of mini lessons on, you know, examples of grabbers or statements, and then they have to connect that to their thesis statement. So they have to somehow create a supporting sentence from their grammar that takes us to their thesis. And so that's their first paragraph. And then their second paragraph is they're going to use quotes from experts. And so in my mini lesson, I give them different ways that you can quote different elements of experts. And then the next paragraph is all of their data analysis. Thank you so much. And then the final paragraph is they're writing about future implications. Yeah. And
I need to take a picture of that too.
I have I created a packet. So I wrote my own essay, and that's what I use as my mentor text to model for them. And so this is the mini lesson where we talk about the hook, the link, and the thesis. We work on those elements.
My kid that's graduating from high school is still help her. Still going back to basics.
Yeah.
Oh, this is great. I'm going to take this back to my teachers.
Good. Excellent.
Awesome. Do you ever have the kids, do you ever set this up the stations and take something out of the bag and something in the bag?
I haven't done that. What we usually do when we work on our opening statement or grabber, I give them a wipe-off marker, and they create their grabber on their desk, and then everyone walks around and gives feedback. And so we do little things like that, but it certainly could be done that way for sure. So what topics do you go over in your global studies?
So it's English 9 and geography. And this is only our second year, and for the past 5 years, geography is part of our environmental studies academy. So our main global topics that we have every unit are usually environmental issues. And so a lot of our big ones, and then kind of narrative. So like English, Sprags and Laws and Air Brazil, the conflict, or we just finished doing basically whiteboard videos that follow this progression for each group had a different environmental issue in New York. So they had factual data article, then they had to create an infographic for their data, and then they pulled quotes from people. And so things like melting of glaciers, pollution in the Danube, acid rain in the Black Forest, and then part of the research comes back to, okay, what has been tried in these locations, and then we watch them to correlate, okay, what do we see are the main common issues. Climate change, a big one.
Yeah.
The Soviet Union, was just the home environment, it's like, yes, Aral Sea, Chernobyl,
Yes.
the Danube, so it's interesting what they pull out in some of those big ones. Our big one for Latin America is Amazon gold mining. They get deforestation, they don't realize other ways in which the Amazon's impacted, so that's one of them. And we have the local Amazon Aid Foundation come and speak to them, that they can make documentaries interviewing why these workers would do that. Well, it's because they're so impoverished, this is the way they can make money, even if it's illegal, it's worth the risk.
Exactly.
So that's a really good.
And we talk about how oftentimes there's a wonderful video I share with my students that talks about why are poor countries poor and rich countries rich.
Yeah.
And it talks a lot about that tropical zone and what goes on there, you know, and also oftentimes in those lands where they are rich in resources, those resources do not become their revenue generator. They are, a small group is brought in and paid to hold the guns while it's mined out and taken out.
It causes the warfare.
Exactly.
That has tropic latitude line is across the country.
Yeah.
Across the world.
If we were positioned slightly differently, you know, we would be in the tropical zone maybe, you know, and think about that.
That's exactly right. Our next topic is canals, and we're doing case studies with different canals around the world of, okay, you know, data, what's the purpose of them, hydroelectric power, oh, that's better than oil and gas. But then to create the canals, what are you doing? And
Flooding.
and flooding and destroying land and displacement of peoples. And so that's another big topic. We're just doing canals. It's like, do canals.
It's deeper than you think.
And it is much.
I wonder if
impactful.
I wonder if the
canals and what do you call it? Dams.
Are
the other one with hydroelectric power.
I don't know if Dollar Street has a.
Well, that's one of the resources I hadn't seen. So
Yeah.
that's what I really want to take a look at, especially our next unit is Latin America in particular.
Yes.